In the autumn of 1226, inside a small stone cell near Assisi, St. Francis of Assisi lay weakened by illness. His breathing was shallow, his body nearly spent. Yet the brothers gathered sensed that this moment carried more weight than an ordinary passing. St. Francis of Assisi had spent his life choosing poverty over comfort, obedience over security. Now, as death approached, the same man who once stripped himself before the bishop lay silently, watched by friars who had followed him into a life of radical surrender. The cell was dim, lit only by fading daylight slipping through narrow stone openings. Prayers were whispered, psalms murmured softly. No one expected spectacle. They expected silence, a slow farewell, and the quiet ending of a body worn by fasting and devotion. Francis asked to be placed directly on the ground, as he had lived close to earth. The request unsettled some, but none refused. This was the same discipline he had practiced for decades, reducing himself so that nothing stood between his soul and God. As the final moments drew near,
Lord, receive him gently into your light.
Seemed to shift. The cell, once shadowed, began to glow subtly, as though warmth entered the room without flame, without sound, and without any visible earthly source. The light did not rush in. It deepened gradually, turning the dim cell into a soft golden radiance. Friars froze, unsure whether to speak or kneel, sensing that what unfolded before them did not belong to ordinary time or human explanation. Francis did not react outwardly. His face remained calm, his breathing steady despite weakness. Those closest noticed no fear, only a strange peace, as if he were crossing a boundary long prepared for through years of prayer and hidden suffering. The golden light filled every corner of the cell, reflecting off stone walls and rough garments. It was not blinding, but unmistakable. Several witnesses later insisted the room was brighter than midday, though night had already begun outside. In that glow, Francis exhaled one final breath. The light lingered even after his body stilled, as if marking the moment. Those present understood instinctively that they were witnessing not merely death, but a passage charged with meaning. When the light finally faded, silence returned heavier than before. The friars looked at one another, aware that what they had seen would not be easily spoken of. Something had confirmed Francis's life in the very moment it ended. After Francis's death, no one moved immediately. The brothers remained still, unsure whether the moment had truly ended. The silence felt different now, charged with memory, as if the light had withdrawn, yet left something unseen, suspended in the room. Several friars later testified that the cell seemed altered even without the light. Ordinary shadows felt shallow. The space no longer carried only grief, but a sense of completion, as though Francis's final obedience had sealed something beyond their understanding. Word spread quietly through the convent before sunrise. No bells rang, no announcement was made. Yet those who entered the cell sensed immediately that something extraordinary had occurred, something not meant for spectacle, but for careful remembrance. Some asked whether the light was grief, exhaustion, or imagination. Others insisted it had form, warmth, and clarity. The brothers did not argue loudly. They understood that what they had witnessed resisted simple categories and demanded humility rather than explanation. Francis's life was remembered alongside the moment. His long nights of prayer, his wounds received in solitude, his relentless refusal of comfort now appeared connected to the light, as though the end revealed what years of discipline had been shaping silently. The brothers recalled how Francis had spoken often of joy in suffering and obedience without reward. Now, facing the memory of the golden room, those words felt less symbolic and more like preparation for something few had expected to witness. As preparations for burial began, the cell was left unchanged for a time. No one wished to disturb the space too quickly, fearing that haste might erase traces of meaning they had not yet learned how to hold. Visitors arrived quietly, guided by rumor rather than proclamation. Each entered expecting sorrow, yet many left unsettled, aware that Francis's death seemed to speak not of loss alone, but of a strange fulfillment still unfolding. Questions multiplied instead of fading. Why light? Why at the final breath? Why witnessed by so few? The lack of answers did not weaken the account, it sharpened it, pressing the brothers to consider what obedience might ultimately invite. As the days passed, the story of the golden light did not grow louder, but deeper. It lingered within the community, unresolved, suggesting that Francis's death was not a conclusion, but a threshold still demanding interpretation. As the final hours of that day passed, the golden light was no longer visible, yet its presence remained undeniable. Those who had seen it spoke quietly, aware that some moments lose power when forced into certainty. Francis's body lay still, unchanged, fragile. Yet the room no longer felt governed by decay. The contrast unsettled the brothers, as if death had paused briefly, allowing something else to speak first. One friar later wrote that the light did not comfort him. It corrected him. It stripped away the idea that holiness ends gently, replacing it with the truth that surrender can be piercing, even radiant. The community understood that Francis had not been rewarded for suffering. He had been revealed through it. The light did not erase his wounds. It exposed what those wounds had shaped. Years of choosing poverty, silence, and obedience converged in that small cell. What seemed ordinary moments before now carried weight, as if the invisible had briefly pressed against the visible world. The brothers realized the miracle was not meant to persuade skeptics. It was entrusted to witnesses, demanding responsibility rather than proof, memory rather than explanation. As word spread beyond Assisi, the story remained restrained. No embellishment followed. Those who spoke of it feared distorting what had been given in silence, not spectacle. Francis's death did not draw attention to himself. It redirected it. The light pointed beyond the man, toward a life emptied so completely that nothing remained to block what followed. Those present carried the moment quietly into prayer. Not celebration, not fear, but a sober awareness settled in. Holiness may arrive without warning, and it may ask more than admiration. Francis of Assisi died in darkness, yet left behind light. Not as memory alone, but as a question still waiting within the Church. What happens when a life finally stops resisting God?